Hello and welcome everybody. Welcome to the latest of the British Council's Global Skills Spotlight series. Just so that you know, we will be recording it and the video will be available on the British Council's website afterwards. There are also closed caption subtitles available, so you can read what the speakers are saying. They're available in English, Arabic, French, Spanish and Portuguese. And there's a small button with a CC on the bottom of it if you've never used them before, and they're there. You can click on that and choose your language. It is computer generated, so it may not be completely accurate. And sometimes that's perhaps a little bit more entertaining than what maybe we're saying. But we apologise in advance if there are any translation mistakes. We couldn't let COP26 pass without discussing environmental sustainability as part of our Global Skills Spotlight series. But for those of you joining for the first time, the series aims to bring together policymakers, thinkers and practitioners to consider key global issues for technical vocational education and skills systems. As we've been reminded over the last few weeks, there's nothing more global or arguably more important than addressing climate change. But what can we, as the TVET and skills community, do? We hear a lot of generic messages about the growing green economy and the skills that it needs. And of course, TVET and skills systems play a part in making those new sectors successful. But we know that greening TVET is more than just that. It's not just new sectors and new jobs that will need to adapt, but existing jobs too. And we need to adapt our curriculum and delivery to meet those new needs. Also, the TVET sector are organisations in their own right, and how they operate can have an environmental impact. So what can we do as individual organisations? And finally, policymakers and the systems they manage need to ensure that they encourage and support the green transition of the TVET sector and don't place barriers in the way of the new ideas and the new things that are introduced. As our recent research on colleges' response to COVID-19 has shown, systems and institutions can respond quickly and innovate when they need to and are allowed to. So why can't we carry on that can-do environment? We have two panel members joining me today to discuss these issues and more. First of all, we've got Sangam Chaliz, who's a project manager for underprivileged children's education programs in Nepal, and he'll provide some very practical examples of how training providers can respond to the challenge. We also have Charlotte Bonner, the National Head of Education and Sustainable Development for the Education and Training Foundation in the UK, and she'll discuss the broader enabling environment perspective. Before I hand over to the panel, I just wanted to point out that we've allocated at least half of the time for discussion, and we'd like you to provide any questions or comments you have for the panel. If you have a question, please type it in the Q&A function on the right-hand side of the screen. And if it's for a specific panelist, write their name into it. We won't publish repeated questions and comments. Instead, if you see a question in there that somebody's already written that you agree with or you want to ask, please just put your thumbs up and we can see the most popular questions and I can ask them. Okay. So without further ado, let me first pass over to Sangam Chaliz from UCEP in Nepal to provide some insight into what his organisation is doing.
Thank you, Chris. Hello everyone, namaste. First of all, I would like to thank Dakshata for providing UCEP Nepal opportunity to present our role on green emissions. And with all your permissions, I would like to start my presentation. And this is the name of our organization, Making the TVET Sector Greener, UCEP Nepal. Next slide, please. Yes, next slide, yeah. Okay, the objective of our project is to enhance income of 400 unemployed youth through market-oriented vocational training and public-private partnership. And our geographic focus is at Bajang district, where we have been conducting agriculture-related training, and at Bardia district, we have been conducting construction-related training. And in our agriculture training at Bajang, we are following field-based apprenticeship model. Yes, next slide, please. So, why are greener solutions needed? For USAID as an organization, we need to do something to contribute towards green economy through TVET. So greener solutions are needed in TVET, we can give example of reuse and recycle of materials, maybe incorporating some green concept in TVET curriculum, so that we can contribute towards greener solutions. And as for the TVET trainees, they not only learn the technical training, but they can learn the technical training in incorporating green concept, so that they can do more for greener economy and greener approaches in the future. So that's why greener solutions are needed as for the organization and for the TVET trainees also. Next slide, please. So what we have been doing in our training program is we have been concentrating on simple elements, like we have installed garbage bins and waste bins around our training venue, and we have reduced the use of printing papers, flakes, and in our different programs at hotels, in our different workshop and programs at hotels, we have been discouraging the use of plastic made products. And also in our discussion with one private organization, there has been discussion that they will help us to install solar panel at USAID Nepal, which will help us to minimize the electricity use. And yes, we have been wisely using our electricity and electronic appliances at USAID Nepal. Next slide, please. So what we have been doing in our current training program, agriculture related training program, is we have been promoting the use of compost mold and locally available organic fertilizer in our training program, and we have been following environmental compliances. We have been discouraging the use of chemical products like pesticides and insecticides, and we have been orienting our trainees to use organic and compost mold as far as applicable, which will not degrade soils and lands, and ultimately increases productivity. Next slide, please. So during our training program, to address the need of green economy, what we did was we are conducting life skill training or soft skill training, and in that session we incorporate a simple concept of green economy, like waste management, climate change, environment conservation, etc., into our soft skill sessions, which were not included earlier. Earlier we used to include the session like customer relationship management and public speaking skills, effective communication. But yes, after partnership with Dacheta and knowing the importance of green economy, we have also incorporated green concept in our life skill session, and these sessions were delivered to all of our trainees. Next slide, please. So during our meeting with different stakeholders like local government, private employers, farmers group, and other like-minded organizations, even media, press, we have been advocating the importance of green economy and green approaches to them. And some stakeholders were not so familiar about green concept in farming before. Now they are aware of green approaches, and now they are willing to actively participate in green economy or green related programs. So also, as per the model of this training, we have to engage with farmer groups from the very initial period of our training, and we have been discussing with them about promoting the use of organic mold, compost mold. And one good thing that we were able to do was, there was one land at Bajang district which was not cultivated for months, for years, and we chose that land as our training venue, and it was cultivated during the training, and vegetables were produced there. trainees learn there, and even now four of our graduates are still cultivating their land, and they are selling vegetable products at market and earning money also from that. Next slide, please. So we have some commitments for the future, and that is like developing green economic guidelines, and we need to follow it, and we need to incorporate it at our organizational policy. And we have been doing that with green growth in consultation with green growth expert from the CHETA also. And I think the other important thing is to incorporate the green growth concept in the TVET curriculum itself. It might be a bit tedious or lengthy task, but if we can do that, then there will be a very much good system of governance also from Nepal government side. And from our organizational side, we will continue to deliver green economy concept in soft skill sessions to trainees of other program and other projects besides the CHETA. And yes, plantation program is always going on at UCF Nepal, and we will continue to plant flowers and trees at UCF Nepal to support green economy. Yes, next slide. Okay, that was it. That's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sangam, that was a very quick run through the great things that you're doing and the very practical things that you're doing. Just to put a little bit of context to the audience, your project is part of a larger project funded by the EU in Nepal and being managed by the British Council, which really has the two big challenges for TVET, which is how to engage the private sector better in TVET, but also how to support the green economy. So that's the project that you're piloting. So that's the sort of the background to what you're talking about there. I was quite interested in what you said about you said within your original training you were providing some of the core skills that we would talk about to trainees, but now you've added green skills as well, these other things that you've talked about. Has that been additional work, or have you managed, does it mean additional teaching time and training time, or have you managed to integrate it into what you already do?
Yes, like 3 days was allocated for life skill program initially in our proposal, and in that 3 days, one day we managed to deliver green economy concept and climate change and environmental compliances to our trainees. No extra time. We completed it in our project time. It was already allocated in our life skill time. We just incorporate green concept in our life skill classes. Otherwise, we were going to deliver the same, customer relationship management and effective communication. And yes, it was very new to us also.
Okay, that's interesting to know. And the other thing, just to clarify for our audience, is that you're training people for recognised qualifications, aren't you? So this is an additional to those qualifications.
Yes, these are additional to their qualifications. Yes.
Yeah. So who knows? At the end of our pilot, those green skills might be incorporated within the qualifications of Nepal, but that's what we hope.
We hope so. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Sangan. We'll now move on to our second speaker now. I mean, that was a great example of what the green agenda means practically, but also how it can also link to making sure training is relevant to market needs. And actually, I don't think you mentioned it too much, Sangam, but actually the training you deliver, as in the title of your organisation, is for disadvantaged people and bringing and raising inclusion of disadvantaged groups. So actually, what you're doing there in your one project is bringing together, many of the Sustainable Development Goals, about sustainability, inclusiveness, and the relevance of TVET. So you're making a big impact there. So Charlotte. Charlotte's from the Education and Training Foundation in the UK, and I know, Charlotte, you've been at COP26 this week. I'm not sure if you've got any insights from the Education Summit that has been taking place there, but nevertheless, she's going to talk a bit more about what an enabling environment for sustainable development in TVET might look like. So over to you, Charlotte.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, it was. I've observed a number of COPs over my career, and I really felt that this year the education agenda was given much more airtime, was really seen as a critical enabler of how we go about meeting our climate goals globally. There was a session between education ministers and environment ministers around the world coming together to make commitments to what those changes in our education systems need to be to help us meet the environmental goals that we've set. And I'm looking forward to seeing some of those pledges come through into realisation over the coming years. Really good to hear the case study that we've just heard from Sangam, and it's quite reassuring that a lot of what I'm going to say kind of really nicely dovetails with that kind of practical example of how TVET providers are putting education for sustainable development into practice. I think the power of the TVET sector is absolutely humongous and really critical. And I think it's twofold, really, in terms of the aims of how we can green TVET providers and the TVET system. And I think one is developing the specialist skills, vocational skills that we need to meet our global sustainability goals. And we've had some great examples from agriculture already this morning. But then I think this is a second aim, and that's creating a common set of knowledge, skills, behaviours, values, agency amongst learners, regardless of their subject specialism, whether they're kind of a part of a technical solution or not to our sustainability goals, so that every learner understands what sustainability is, understands how it relates to their subject specialism, and understands how it relates to their lives and their jobs too in future. So I see this kind of duality of potential within TVET, that kind of specialist skill development, specialist green skills, and then those kind of more generalist green skills too, that are almost a universal principle that are relevant to anybody. And I think by pursuing those two aims, there's also loads of potential extra benefits for TVET providers as organisations, working and operating more sustainably. I think there's potential benefits for the communities within which TVET providers operate. And again, Sangam's given us some great examples looking at the learners that they're particularly targeting in terms of enhancing inclusivity and accessibility of sustainability issues too. So I think there's a huge amount of potential in our sector, and a lot of that's being realised already by stories like we've heard this morning. I think there's lots of ways that a provider can go about enhancing its education for sustainable development provision. And I use a model that's really simple. There's 4 C's to kind of think about the different lenses you can apply to the work that you're doing to better enhance learners' understanding of sustainability issues and developing their sustainability skills. And the first is through the curriculum. So what are you actually teaching in your classroom, in your working environment, in your online classroom? What is it that you're teaching your learners, and how do they see sustainability interrelate with the core subject that they're there to study? So research shows us that learners don't want to learn about construction and then learn sustainability as a separate issue. They want to see, how does sustainability relate to construction? How does construction cause sustainability challenges, and how can construction solve some of those sustainability challenges? So what's being taught in the classroom, the curriculum piece. The second one is then looking at your campus. I know that not everybody has a campus, but your operations, your buildings, the learning environment in which you're teaching. How are you embedding sustainable practice within that? And again, Sangam gave some great examples about your waste management, your energy management. What are the norms you're creating for your learners in terms of how organisations deliver what they're there to deliver responsibly. And how can you use that as a learning tool? You know, if you're making changes, if you're retrofitting your building, if you're building a new building, or if you're adapting your waste management systems, can you use that as a learning tool for your students and for your learners? Can your construction students get involved in their building? Can your business students look at the administrative processes that support those changes? So how do we use our campus, the C, our organisations, both to progress sustainability, but also as a learning tool in its own right? The third C is about community and how TVET providers work with local employers, local charities, the local communities that they serve, to really build a connected network of people working towards sustainability. And I think this is one of the things that, again, I think is very interesting, is that kind of supply and demand of green skills, and how we make sure that what we're teaching in TVET is what's relevant and has currency for employers, but also how we're making sure that we have the skills for the future needs of those employers too. So I think bringing a sustainability lens to your community engagement, to your community partners, is another good way to progress this agenda. And then finally, the fourth C is all around culture. So how you work with your staff, how you work with your leaders, your governors, your students, to develop a culture of sustainability. So sustainability isn't seen as something additional to what we do as an organisation, but it's just part of how we approach things. It's a question we always ask. It's a lens we bring to our decision making. And at the Education and Training Foundation in the UK, we believe that one of the best ways to develop excellence in TVET is through developing excellent leaders, excellent educators. So we focus primarily on continual professional development. Some of our work is also looking at initial teacher education and professional standards. And when we first started looking at education for sustainable development, the first thing that we did was do some research with the TVET workforce in the UK to find out what their experiences of education for sustainable development were, what they were currently doing, what their opinions were, and what they saw as challenges. And that's been really useful for us to inform our work, to inform the professional development that we're providing, and also to use as a tool when discussing with others about how we create a more system-wide change when it comes to education for sustainable development. Andrea, can you put my slide up, please? So I wanted to focus just a little bit on this system-wide change concept, because of course the TVET sector is complex. It has big interrelationships with other parts of the education system, with other parts of our communities. And so drivers of change aren't simple. We can't just flick a switch and boom, green skills be embedded in our system, in our sector. So I wanted to just spend a little bit of time looking at this. So as I say, the Education and Training Foundation, we're primarily a professional development organisation. So right there in the middle, staff CPD, continued professional development, is something that we want to provide for the sector and have started to provide for the sector in terms of courses, looking at the principles of education for sustainable development, in terms of subject specific resources to help educators see the links between sustainability and their core subject matter, about curriculum mapping tools. So that bit is the bit that we have direct kind of influence over, I suppose, within the TVET sector in England. And also the professional standards. So we manage the professional standards for the sector. We can start to embed sustainability skills within those, so educators see their role in transitioning TVET to a green sector. But we're just part of a system, as many many TVET providers are part of a system. So Sangam talked about the institutional response to greening TVET earlier on, and again that's kind of a middle out driver. The more providers that pick up the green agenda, that look at how they're equipping their learners with sustainability skills, change will come. But of course there's other drivers of change too, and some of those are top down. So how do we make sure that the educators are well equipped to deliver green skills training as part of their TVET? Well, we do that through initial teacher education specifications and professional standards. How do we make sure that TVET providers have what they need? Well, we do that through embedding sustainability within central funding mechanisms, or within sector policy and strategy, or inclusion of sustainability within the regulatory framework. So there's all sorts of drivers of change, and I think it's going to take a little bit of all of these if we're going to achieve a really embedded approach to sustainability within TVET, and also a future-proofed approach to sustainability within TVET, because of course the sustainability challenges that we face now are different to the sustainability challenges we're going to face in 5 years' time, are different to the sustainability changes we're going to face in 25 years' time, and similarly the solutions to those challenges are going to be different too. So I think it's about changing our system so that sustainability is seen as a thread throughout that system. It's there as one of the purposes of TVET. We're here to meet society's sustainability challenges, but it's also future-proofed in terms of it's something we continue to address so that what we're teaching has relevance and currency. So that's it from me for now, Chris. I hope I met the brief.
You certainly have. Thank you very much. That's a fantastic overview of the different aspects to which the sector has to respond and can respond really in the future and integrate it. And that's, I think that's the from what I've seen. We all talk about in generality about responding to environmental needs and the green and TVET having an important part to play. But actually, how do we do that? And I think you've set out that really well. I have got a couple of questions directly for you, Sangam, that have come through. So maybe we can cover those first before I go back to ask Charlotte some things. One of the things that was asked about was how did the students respond to the initiative? And I think that also thinks to what you were saying, Charlotte, doesn't it? What do the learners think about this?
Yeah, thank you, Chris. Yeah, when we were delivering these sessions, like there was mixed reaction from trainees. Yes, some of we are like not giving them big picture of green economy, but the small element as the background of our trainees, they are from low educational background. So we were delivering simple concept like less use of plastic products. At least we can put our plastic papers or our garbage at garbage pit. And one instant I would like to share. We were providing life skill education to our trainees at Bajan, and many of them, they say, yes, we were aware of these things before, but there was no one connecting us or saying to us that we should do these things, and these things will make our environment better, and these things will preserve our environment. We did not knew that before. So there was very much excited, trainees were excited to have green economy class. It was also new to them. Yes, there were some few trainees who used to say, yeah, we knew it already. But yes, many of them, they have provided positive response, and they were also like eager to learn more. Like some of them were saying only 3 days are not sufficient for us to learn all these green skills and climate change. So we could, elaborate training days for them to have their to provide them knowledge about the green economy, and it was yes, good response from them.
It's good. I mean, we hear a lot on the news, don't we, about the green agenda being, one of the most important things young people are worried about, and this is. But this is TVET provides a practical, as you were saying, Charlotte, it's a practical route by which they can do something about through the training, isn't it? I think you were giving some examples there of construction, about integrating the green skills into the curriculum. Are there any other examples, Charlotte, that you've got in terms of, I mean, because construction and maybe energy are always the sectors people think about in terms of integrating green skills. Is there anything you can make to broaden people's horizons in terms of what they think about?
Well, I genuinely think that all subjects can be sustainability subjects, and one of the resources we're soon to publish is a subject specialism guide which provides educators with prompts and resources of how they can bring green skills and sustainability education into their subject specialism, whether they're teaching, you said construction and energy, or whether they're teaching animal management or catering or accountancy or modern languages. There's a whole way, huge way that that people can bring that into their teaching and learning practice, whether that's as a subject matter. If you're teaching catering, then how do you teach people to ensure that the food sourcing, the energy use in the system, the food waste in the system is sustainable, but also in terms of exemplification. So if you're teaching a skill such as mathematics, you can use sustainability examples and activities to enhance people's understanding whilst developing those mathematical skills. So perhaps doing carbon footprinting calculations, for example. So there's a whole host of ways that it can be brought into different subject specialisms. And I think when you look at the carbon targets we've set globally, I think there's obviously sectors that have a more urgent role to transition to more sustainable practice. But I genuinely think that all sectors will be transformed in some way, shape or form over the next number of decades towards a sustainable future. So I think it's pretty universal actually in terms of its relevance.
Yeah. And Sangam, related to that, I think there's a question about whether you've coordinated with CTVET, which for those people listening, CTVET is the vocational agency in Nepal. So have you coordinated with them with the curriculum division about how you incorporate the green components into the curricula? Or do you intend to?
Currently, we have been coordinating with a green growth expert from TVET, and the first tasks we need to do, they are coordinating with not only Mission Nepal, other 10 partners from TVET also. And with their support, we are, first of all, we are trying to make green economy guidelines for our organization and for organizational policy. And we have not coordinated with CTVET yet as UCF Nepal. And I think once the guiding document of organization, we can prepare that. And not only UCF Nepal, I think other TVET actors and other TVET institutions, we should go together. And yes, and we should advocate with training curriculum division at CTVET. It is our future plan, but we have not discussed this with CTVET yet as UCF Nepal. But I think TVET themselves might have discussed this with CTVET. But from UCF Nepal, we have not gone to CTVET yet.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that I mentioned, the research that we did of the TVET workforce here in England, and they cite one of the key stats from that was that educators who weren't already looking at sustainability or green skills in their work, the biggest barrier that they cited was the curriculum to which they teach. So that was what they saw as the thing that was preventing them from bringing sustainability education into their teaching and learning practice. Which I think is quite interesting. It's one of those top-down drivers of change for the sector. And I've spoken to a number of awarding bodies over the last 6 months, and most of them have this on their agenda. It's something that they are absolutely thinking about in terms of what specialist qualifications they're developing, but also how they bring that sustainability lens across their curricula. But the curriculum reform process, at least in this country, is quite slow. So I think there's also an opportunity for being kind of flexible with how you interpret your, obviously teaching to the curriculum, absolutely, but in terms of, like I say, the activities, the examples that you use, the discussions and pedagogical techniques you use, so that you can bring that kind of sustainability narrative in, even if your curriculum doesn't have it explicitly within there at the moment. But it is something that definitely needs some work if we're going to get that systems-wide change.
I think the curriculum development process is slow in just about every country. I don't think that's just unique to the UK. And I think this is it's a great example actually. When we talk amongst ourselves about how you could improve the curriculum development process in many countries, a lot of the emphasis is on how you engage better with employers. But sometimes we forget it is a tripartite process. So employers don't always know exactly what they want in the long run. They do a lot of the time, but there are some of these social needs which they're maybe not as aware of, and that is why it's a three-way conversation. It's training providers, it's employers, and it's also government and civil society to identify some of those other things that need to be incorporated within the training. And this is maybe that area, one of those areas where that additional aspect is needed. So that's something that for those policymakers developing the process for changing curriculum. Yes, for many countries, that greater engagement with employers is probably the most important thing. But we can't forget the reason that the government is involved in developing the curriculum is for the social side of it as well. It can't, otherwise we'd just leave it to employers in the first place. So I think.
Yeah. There's an example from the Institute for Apprentices and Technical Education in the UK. So they bring together employers to define curriculum specifications, occupational standards for apprenticeships. And earlier this year, they published a sustainability framework so that those groups who are developing new standards have a framework to use to think about, well, what are the sustainability implications of this job in the future? What are the skills, the knowledge, the behaviours that we need people training for this job to have that relate to sustainability? And it's an optional part of the process at the moment, but it's been published and is starting to be used. So it'll be interesting to see the impact that has.
I think also there's as I alluded to in my introduction, there's something around systems enabling training providers to have the freedom to try these things and introduce new aspects in their delivery as well. In some systems, there's very rigid. It's very rigidly set out what training providers can deliver, and that limits them being able to move in this direction. Whereas in other systems, it gives that little bit of freedom, as SAGM has had, to try different things and to move into those additional skill needs. Second, the other area I think, again, Charlotte alluded to, but I think also would be a good question for you is, we've talked about learners, but what about the trainers and the teachers within your organisation? How have they responded to the change and addressing the green agenda?
Yes, it was a bit new to us. Yes, we have been doing some green related works earlier at UCF Nepal also. We have installed rainwater harvesting system for groundwater recharge. We have been doing that work, but we are not being able to relate our TVET work with green economy. So after the help from Dacheta and Dacheta expert, we get insight that we could relate TVET and green economy together. And for that, for our trainer, yes, they have experience of conducting technical training for many years, but they were also not so experienced in conducting technical training, including green economy. So we have orientation with them, and we told them the basic things that I said earlier. Like, while we are providing training, please ensure we are using materials as much as we need, but we are not wasting any materials. We are not using any plastic cups or plastic plates at our training venue, and we are since we have installed garbage pits at our training venue. And most important, what we orient trainers also, but this is from my instance, there is, I don't know, some culture of I think of us, if there is tap and we are opening it and the water is running there, and I think we just wash our face, but we will not close that tap. But at least we can say our trainer and trainees, if you are using water, you can use it, but please close it properly after you use it. Like these simple things we orient to our trainers, and they orient it further to our trainees. And at the management level of UCF Nepal, we have had coordination meeting with the Dacheta and Green Growth session. We have prepared commitment matrix, like we will do this to help our environment to be green. For example, we might be using petrol and diesel a bit more than other organizations, and we are trying to reduce that. And if possible, we are going to provide training on electric vehicle, if possible, on electric vehicle. And like that, we are trying to, first work out on simple things that we could do without the help of funding. Without any more funding, we can do it ourselves. Like we can reduce the use of electricity. For that, we do not need funding. We can do it ourselves. We can orient our trainers. We can orient our trainees. For that, we do not need additional funding. So we are like practicing that type of culture and that type of things currently at our organization. Yes.
Is it something? I mean, you were talking about, something that your trainers were not necessarily used to, and you had to adapt their curriculum. Is this something where actually training providers can come together to help each other and learn from each other? Have you been doing that?
Yes, definitely. Yes, yes, it was not in our training curriculum. Yes, green economy concept, and after a series of meeting with Dachita, and we incorporate it in our training curricula. I think all of us TVET institutions, we can do that. Yeah, we can coordinate with each other also, and we can make that in our life skill session. We can at least deliver it to our trainees. Yes.
I mean, Charlotte, to some extent, how do you update the skills of the trainers associated with green skills is no different to updating the skills of trainers for any skills, really, is it? Is that right?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's a real appetite for this amongst educators. I think educators really understand the potential that they have in contributing to the transition to a green economy. They see the value of this for their students. Somebody asked earlier on about how the students themselves are responding to these initiatives. In a lot of countries, the students are one of the key drivers of change towards a more sustainable education system. And it really, time after time, research shows that students really want sustainability to be embedded in their education. They expect their education providers to be operating sustainably. So I think the workforce in TVET really, they understand the potential of this agenda, and they see it as quite a collaborative, but the collaborative agenda. They don't see it as we need to do this better than another institution, another provider. This is something that we all need to be doing. So there's a real desire for storytelling, for case studies, for examples like the one we've heard this morning. I'm constantly asked, what are other people doing? How can we learn from others? And although the sustainability agenda is not new by any stretch of the imagination, there's a lot we can learn both by collaborating within the country, but also globally too. And I think it's why participation in webinars like this is really valuable, because we can see, well, actually, some of the things that are being done in Nepal are absolutely applicable to other contexts too. So I think in terms of how we equip the workforce, I think there needs to be, like as I talked about, some of the top-down drivers, recognition of the green skills agenda, the education for sustainable development agenda in initial teacher education is great, but of course the vast majority of educators are already in the workforce, so it's about that continued professional development. And we're looking at particular courses that are available to educators, setting up communities of practice around education for sustainable development, sharing resources, sharing case studies, so that people have what they need to really explore this and bring it to their own teaching and learning practice in a way that is contextually relevant for their subject matter, for their learners, for the community that they serve, for the organisation they work for. Because of course, whereas there is a lot to learn from one another, there isn't a one-size-fits-all kind of answer. So it's about kind of giving people the space and the tools, I suppose, that they need to really feel confident and comfortable with their own understanding of sustainability, and then to bring that to their professional practice.
Yeah, it's true. Moving on to something different now, we've got a question from Sudan, and I think we've talked a lot about integrating green skills into sort of existing occupations. I think this question is more about how did we identify the sectors that we're working in where green skills are needed and providing to learners, and what are the ways in which to identify what green skills are needed in designing a training programme. I mean, we've heard a lot. I guess it's that. What are the new sectors coming through, and how do we identify them in our country? I suppose. Sangam, I don't know whether that was part of your decision process, or it's what you deliver training courses in those sectors anyway, don't you? So it was about greening them. Is that correct?
Yes, I think the two sectors, meaning construction and agriculture. And I think the question, what is the mechanism? Yeah, we did a market assessment at Bardia and Bajrang district, and from that market assessment, it was found that construction-related training program was needed at Bardia district, and agriculture-related training was related at Bajrang district, and those two sectors were identified like that. And the green skills is like we have having series of meeting with green growth experts from Dacheta, and they have been like facilitating us from green point of view. Like we can do that to make a green economy. You can do that to for conservation of environment. So we have having series of discussion with Dacheta team, and from that we like adapt something to our training curricula. We extract our learnings from Dacheta's expert, and we incorporate in our training curricula. It is not like it was our like initial learning. We are also in learning phase from green economy point of view. So it was our we did not do that much big thing, or we did not incorporate much more thing to our training. Just simple thing that we already knew, that we also get to know from the experts from Dacheta. So we incorporate that and make it suitable for our trainees so that they could learn something new about green.
So you did undertake consultations with local employers and local people and experts and stakeholders as well, didn't you? So you've done that consultation, and whilst
Yes.
the changes might be small, they were important, and they were introduced. You knew they were the right ones because of that consultation with your stakeholders in the sector. Is that what I don't want to put words in your mouth, but is that what you were saying?
Yes, yes. Like before delivering our project, or before delivering our training, we had a series of workshops with our stakeholders, and there are local government and local employers, private employers, farmer groups, and yes, for them we advocate the importance of green economy to them. Like climate change, it is happening, it is real. At least we can do something from our side. Yes, and. Yes, most of them they were aware. Yes, they know. Yes, we should do. They were aware, but some of them, they also do not know. Yeah, if I am doing this, then I am degrading my environment. Some stakeholders, yeah, they did not know that the activities they were doing, that it was like degrading environment. So it was very good initiative with them. Like we have been working with them till date also. So there has been other series of meeting also, and there has been seen some changes in our in the work of our stakeholders also. Now they are positive towards green economy. Now they know, yes, we need to do. At least the most important thing is to make realize, and yes, now we need to do something for green economy. Now they are advocating that. I think that means a lot. Earlier they did not know much about green economy. Now they are trying to advocate, yes, it is important for us, we need to do this. So I think that's the change we want, and that is happening. Yes.
Okay, great. And Charlotte, I mean, we're running out of time, but did you have anything to say about this? How we identify what the new sectors are that we need to be providing skills in, and that labour market anticipation type question?
Yeah, I mean, I think the triad that you mentioned earlier on in terms of employers and educators and kind of government or civil society coming together to really work out what the industry's future needs are likely to be for each different industry is exactly the way to do it. And I think there's definitely a role there for professional exchange as well, to ensure up-to-date industry experience in TVET educators, so that we can understand how people are being equipped for work, and we can make sure that kind of educators are up to date with the latest technology. I think investment in TVET from industry and employers, including access to technology and kind of what the innovations are in that particular sector, is also really valuable, both for educators and learners. And like I say, I think that will help with the technical skills. And then I think there are a number of skills that are just universal that will help with that lifelong learning, because like I say, the technological changes are going to be rapid in many areas. So I think if we can develop skills that develop learners' value of lifelong learning, develop skills that are fairly universal sustainability skills like critical thinking, by understanding global contexts and local contexts, being able to communicate sustainability well, then I think those are kind of the universal ones, and then there's different things that could be done to develop the specialist ones. But I think, you know, your point earlier on, Chris, about that triad is generally where you maximise those.
Okay, thanks, Charlotte. We're coming to an end, I'm afraid. Time has flown by. I will have one final question to you, and this is the biggie. Hopefully, there's people out there who are making decisions and who might to influence. What would be your advice to them? What is the one single practical thing that you'd ask TVET leaders to do to help us meet the green ambitions? Do you want to go first, Sangam?
Yes, to achieve green ambitions, from the implementing point of view, as we are implementing projects and we have been working to the root level people. So I think the first priority is to make policy regarding green economy. Yes, if we can make policy, and it will be the guiding document for us, and it will be mandatory for all of us to follow that policy, and we can be in line with that policy. And I think if we have that policy in place, and maybe today I am doing that job as project manager, another time another man could do that job, but that policy, it will remain there and it will act as a guiding document. And I think, yes, we need to make a green policy and make it mandatory and follow it.
I think that reinforces one of the comments I think about. We've talked about integrating green into everything, but actually it also needs to be made explicit. Otherwise, people will ignore it, and it'll just be something that stays in the background. Charlotte, your final message.
I think, given the scale and the urgency of the challenges we're facing, then I think the first thing is that we really need to be bold. We need to recognise the appetite that's there for this and kind of be bold and kind of crack on to some extent. So I think that's my first thing, is like, absolutely, let's get on with it. And then the second thing is just that it doesn't matter where you are in the TVET system, if you're a learner or an educator or a leader. I think just bringing that question into your decision making. What are the sustainability challenges and opportunities of this decision? And you can apply that universally so that it starts to be seen as a central and critical part of our system. Those are my two things I'd like to see happen sharpish.
Thank you. And I think from my perspective, it's about, let's learn from the quick decision making and the making things happen that happened during the terrible period we've just been through, and let's apply some of those things to the green agenda, and because that's just as urgent.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, thank you very much, both of you, Charlotte and Sangam, for sharing your time with us. It's been really, really interesting to find out some of the practical things that have been going on, as well, sort of the bigger issues. And I hope our audience found it as interesting as I did. We want to make these sessions as interesting, as relevant for you, the audience, as well. So we'd really pleased if you could follow the link that's in the chat and complete our short feedback form. But if you want to let us know directly, whether you think it's interesting or topics that we can cover in the future, do let us know directly. You can email skills@britishcouncil.org. And with that, I think I will bring it to a close. I hope it's been useful. Thank you very much, everybody, for your contribution, and we will see you next time.
Thanks so much, Chris.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chris.